I moved so fast through the minor leagues. It wasn't because I had it all figured out. When I got to the big leagues, I was lucky to have like really good veteran guys around me that I watched, and two, I bothered with a lot of questions.
There's so much disruptive shock in the entrepreneur world, in your world, and what you do now. How has that shown up in your ability to navigate that and stay centered?
The great thing about baseball, there's always honest feedback. Somebody's going to tell you stunk, and this is how you get better. With the group I have around me, I have people that tell me, nah, it's a stupid idea. Now, bourbon-wise, it's just about doing cool stuff, man. If you make cool stuff and you tell cool stories, people are going to buy it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Athletics of Business Podcast. I am your host and CEO of the Molitor Group, Ed Molitor. And what an absolutely phenomenal conversation we have for you today with our special guest, Drew Storen, a former Major League Baseball veteran of 8 seasons. And Drew was drafted, I believe it was number 10 in the first round, drafted out of Stanford University by the Washington Nationals. After his baseball career, and we talk a lot about this today, right? Drew Storen founded Field of Dreams Whiskey Company, a brand that distills the actual corn from the Field of Dreams movie site in Dyersville, Iowa. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, it could be fun, it could be cool, it could be cheesy. It's absolutely a phenomenal story, how he fell in love with bourbon, the whole idea and how it consumed him towards the end of his playing career. We really go deep with some of the things that happened to Drew in his career, injury-wise and performance-wise, and just some of the great moments, some of the highs and lows. And he connects it to everything in the business world, and it's really cool, and we have a lot of laughs. So sit back, enjoy this. I hope you enjoyed it half as much as I did recording it. Special guest, Drew Storen. Drew, thank you so much for joining us today on the Athletics of Business Podcast. Man, I can't tell you how fired up I am for the wonderful introduction and to have you here. I appreciate you taking time out of your world for us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey, congratulations on all your success with the Field of Dreams with bourbon. We're going to jump into that here in a second. But first, and I know, by the book, and I don't do a lot of things by the book. You're not supposed to timestamp podcast episodes, but it's spring training, right? And it's that time of year that meant so much to you and still means so much to you in your life. Talk about what you just got done doing with the family here, if you can, a little bit.
Yeah. Luckily, had the opportunity to go down and be a guest instructor with the team I spent the most time with, the Nationals. So got to take the whole fam. So I have 3 kids and 2 boys that are 5 and 8. So just peak time
Oh yeah.
baseball wise and fanfare. And so got to, get them in the cages and on the field, taking grounders and just kind of seeing, my oldest was 1 the last time I was in the big league. So it was nice to have them actually see what I can do and actually see me in a dugout. And, I joke to prove that, the prove to them my YouTube videos aren't like deep fakes or anything.
That is legit. Yeah, they understand the gravity of what you accomplished. Not just in the bigs, but in high school and then Stanford and your whole career. I mean, a pretty amazing journey.
Oh, thank you. I don't think so. That's kind of one of those things. I think as a kid, I even look back at my own childhood and the things that I truly didn't understand. Like I took for granted or whatnot. But
Mhm.
it's just something that hopefully as they get older, they understand that like whether they choose to do sports or whatever it is, to put that same that killer mentality and attack whatever you choose to do. And that's why I do love sports. Obviously, it teaches such great life lessons, whether you make it your career or not.
I'm going to come back to that here a little bit later in the conversation because I have a couple questions about, I want to learn vicariously through you, right? Like how you're going to go about certain things with your sons in certain moments and your daughter as well, based on the experiences you had in the bigs, right? Like the roller coaster ride of your career, the roller coaster ride of life in general. But man, talk to us about the bourbon. Like, how did this come about? Like, it's just unbelievable that you and your buddies have done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so our bourbon Field of Dreams whiskey, not just a name. We take the corn from the most famous cornfield in the world there in Dyersville, Iowa, the actual Field of Dreams movie site, and we make it into bourbon. My love for bourbon started more than a decade ago. I got into collecting, really cool stories. So you name a really cool story, I probably overpaid for it, but I love showing it off when people come to my house. My oldest bottle I think was distilled in 1916, so I got pretty heavy. Fell in love with it. Again, it's all about bourbon. Especially when I started collecting, wasn't so much about the money as much as who you knew, and that's to me that's the cool part. You can't just buy your way into it. So fast forward to 2018, I'm on a road trip with my best friend Andy, who's from here in Indianapolis. Grew up with him, known him since I was 9, and he was the one that kind of helped me track down bourbons. And so we were talking, if we were to come up with our own story, what would we do? And that's kind of when it came out. We're like, well, what if we use the corn from the Field of Dreams? And we're like, oh, that's cool, but like, here's all the different reasons why this would be kind of crazy. Obviously, the foremost one being how do you actually get that corn? But it was something that kind of stuck around. I continued my career, and then I wrapped it up at the end of 2020, and pretty much decided to wrap it up to go for more into this because I had been starting to kind of mull around some ideas on it and really look heavier into it, and found myself kind of fall in love with the idea of a being home with the kids, but two to see if we can pull this off.
I want to go back to your career, right, and how you got to that point. And a couple of questions wrapped around that. But you go to Stanford, College World Series, Omaha. You played in Rosenblatt, right? You were still in
Hmm.
Rosenblatt when you're there.
Yep.
Such an amazing place, though. You're drafted number 10, right? You go to the bigs. Let's talk about that. Talk about that journey with the Nats and then what happened and transpired from there.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to be on a great team, as you mentioned, at Stanford my freshman year. So I had, I think, 4 other big leaguers on it. So immediately kind of thrown into the fire, and that's when I moved to the bullpen and just fell in love with the adrenaline of it. Just kind of an ironic full circle thing. I would bat boy for the Expos growing up whenever they were around Indianapolis. So I had a chance to meet Chad Cordero, who I got to see pitch in Omaha when I was a kid, and then I actually got to be a bat boy for when he got called up in the big leagues that same year. So once they put me in the bullpen, I immediately in my head was like, man, if I could get on that guy's program, that would be amazing. And so fortunately strung together 2 good years there. I was a draft eligible sophomore, also pitched well in the Cape League. And, the Nationals wanted me as a reliever. So they picked me because they picked Strasburg 1. So, my goal wasn't necessarily to get drafted in the first round. My goal was to get to the big leagues as fast as possible. So, um, luckily for me, I was in a good situation and I moved quick, and I was up by May the next year. And, I had to grow up. Like, yeah, I learned in the big leagues, guys tend to run into those ups and downs and the struggles and the humbling nature of the game in the minor leagues, but that happened at the big league level. So that was something where, you learn to kind of tunnel vision a little bit better than others. But, for me, there was no better feeling in the world coming in to a game, where essentially as a fan, you're watching going, I don't want to be that guy. I always loved to be that guy. There's no adrenaline rush like it.
Well, and I loved your mindset. I heard an episode of the From Phenom to the Farm podcast where you said you want to make the hitter be the hero. The pressure's on the hitter
Hmm.
to be the hero, not you, which is really, really cool. But let's go. So, Bat Boy with the Expos, right?
Hmm.
And you're a Bat Boy. Go to the time you got your first big league uniform, and who handed that uniform to you?
Yeah.
How that is connected. See, when you get to be a little bit older like me, you appreciate the stories and how life comes full circle when you least
Hmm.
expect it.
So first time I did it was in Cincinnati. That was at, yeah, gosh, I can't remember what year it was exactly, but either way, I go into the Expos locker room and get my uniform from Wally, who's the equipment manager. So, I do that the handful of times. It's all great. But then, I get drafted by the Washington Nationals. And when I do get called up in May, the same guy that gave me my Expos uniform is giving me my major league uniform. Kind of one of those things like we're talking about just being down there in spring training. I was like, you've known me since
Yeah.
longer than anybody here.
It's all
So
Wally too. That's the irony of it all. That's amazing.
yeah, it's just one of those things, man. I've been very blessed to have a lot of those kind of Forrest Gump full circle type stories in my life, and all that stuff happens for a reason.
So you go through the minors warp speed, right? I think it was 41 appearances in the minors. You get to the bigs. Talk about the things that you learned. First of all, you know, being drafted number 10, right? And the bullpen, the mentality. I mean, you guys are a different breed, and I love it. Like I compare you guys to hockey players. Okay. You guys
Oh yeah.
just you think different, you operate different. I'd go to battle with you any day of the week, all day long, right? But you were even a little bit more unique than that. Did you or did you not design, I believe it was with the Nationals, the bullpen foam and bleacher seating in the bullpen?
Yeah, yeah. So
Insane. Talk about that.
so the first couple years I was there, I mean, we're already down there locked in a cage, but when you have to like look through the cage, it's just not like the best viewing experience. So I kind of campaigned for a couple of years and obviously got to the point where I just drew up the elevated seating and kind of had the measurements. And I said, I went up to Mr. Lerner, the principal owner. I said, I would love to have these. And, one spring training, he was like, all right, we'll do it. And ended up getting them done. And, yeah, and then after we got that, I ended up getting on eBay and just getting a cool old payphone cover to put over the bullpen phone, just because it was funny.
That was kind of your deal at your major at Stanford. Was it design engineering or what was it
Yeah,
exactly?
product design. So
Product
essentially,
design.
yeah, mechanical engineering base with,
Mhm.
if I would have, stayed in school on that, the art is kind of towards the tail end.
How much of that creativity played into what you've done with the Field of Dreams whiskey? I mean, it's
All of
pretty,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Talk
all of
about
it. I
that.
mean,
We'll
that,
go back to baseball. Talk about that a little
yeah.
bit, though.
My mom is a graphic designer, so growing up, she worked from home. So I used to go play catch and hit, do all that stuff, play basketball, and then go up to her office and just kind of draw and design cool things. So I've always had that kind of bug. Um, but yeah, I mean, essentially, once I retired, I took one online class at Stanford that was product realization. And so the kind of the way I looked at it was I was getting compared in baseball to 19 and 20-year-olds. And so I was like, well, if I do well in this class, then I can probably do the whiskey thing. It's all just problem solving anyways. And I'll never forget, I had my freshman year, I took a class, and one of the instructor was a designer at Apple. It was just a night class about just drawing. And so he gave me one compliment. So that always just stuck with me as oh, here you go. I can do this stuff. So it was nice to get some validation when I did take the product realization class, and I did really well and I really loved the process. And so I was like, okay, I think I can figure it out. And it's all about problem solving and luckily knowing people. And I think, kind of to your point about carrying baseball over to business, I moved so fast through the minor leagues. Like, it wasn't because I had it all figured out. When I got to the big leagues, I was lucky to have like really good veteran guys around me that I watched, and two, I bothered with a lot of questions. My theory was these guys have been here for a minute. Why do I need to figure it out on my own if I can just steal what they're doing? And so I would just take parts of their routine and all that and just kind of learn from them. So with the whiskey company, that's kind of what I did. Luckily in my network, I had some people that have some knowledge in the industry, and I just started from scratch. I said, okay, if you're going to build a brand like this, what's the ideal way? What is the Moneyball way to do it so that, hey, I'm not some guy that becomes a 30 for 30 by over investing into something and then going broke and they show it at some rookie symposium, So yeah, I wanted to do it the right way. And, like I said, been
You wanted to
very,
show
very
that for the
lucky.
right reasons at the rookie symposium, right? Like this is what you
Exactly.
are capable of doing. You don't have
Yeah.
to be this, you can be this instead.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, man. I've been very lucky, but it's just one of those deals where I never been afraid to ask questions and learn and kind of soak it in.
Talk about like the intestinal fortitude it takes though to be a setup man or even, a closer. I mean, just to be an athlete in general at that level, right? But the intestinal fortitude, and you talked about for lack of a better word, we'll talk about mentors, right? Some of the older veterans that helped you through situations and navigated the highs and the lows. Okay. How does that show up in your ability to just kind of, there's so much disruptive shock in the entrepreneur world, in your world, and what you do now. How has that shown up in your ability to navigate that and stay center, right? Stay real
Yeah.
even.
There's anxiety in the entrepreneur side of me, right? Because I don't know the rules of the game like I know baseball. You put me in a baseball situation, like, hey, whatever. To you could be extremely stressful. For me, that's like I embrace that chaos. So like for me, I try to take that mentality of knowing that, like, hey, I've been in some pretty crazy high pressure situations facing the best in the world. I bet I could figure this call out. Or I could, like
Yeah.
there's just like I'm probably overthinking something, and again, it's the same mentality because I got myself into trouble by overthinking when I pitched, and so it's about finding the balance, and for me, like the great thing about baseball, there's always honest feedback, right? If you stunk, somebody's going to tell you you stunk, and this is how you get better. And luckily with the group I have around me, I have people that tell me, "Nah, it's a stupid idea." You need to have people that tell you no. It's like what everybody talks about now, right? It's hunting discomfort. And the only times that that we always said to rookies when they came up to the big leagues, don't get comfy. And like I learned to just kind of embrace that, embrace the chaos and like the discomfort, and that's usually when the cool stuff happens.
So the overthinking piece, how did you navigate through that in baseball, right? And then hate using this term, but everybody, the real world, like when you got out
Yeah.
into the business world, like how did you learn to get yourself to be able to make decisions without all the information, to not fall victim to paralysis by analysis? When did that come
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I was playing, scouting reports were not nearly what they are now. Um, but Max Scherzer was the first guy that I was around that had just a crazy, like, I mean, his data chart is awesome. Like, it was fascinating. And so I remember going out in a game, and I tried. There was it was Matt Holliday. So in a 2-2 count, I remember in a 2-2 count against right-handers changeups, he was hitting like 038 against it. I was like, okay, so I had him in a 2-2 count, and I'm like, here we go. Here's a good changeup. It was the perfect pitch at the time, and he just crushed it. And I'm like, oh man, like, dude, that's like how. And so then, fast forward 2 weeks from that, I'm facing Brandon Belt, who owns left-handed or right-handed changeups. He was hitting like 355 or something against him, and what was the right pitch? And I threw it and I struck him out. So I went against the numbers on that one. And so that, like, stuff like that is when I kind of go, what's in my gut is sometimes probably better than what's on that paper. The wrong pitch thrown with conviction is better than the right pitch without it. Right. So I think for me, it's about dying on your own hill. I think, the only times that I really lost sleep was when I settled for a pitch and I got beat on it instead of throwing that pitch in my gut. So, that's kind of where I think I weed through some overthinking side of things by just going, okay, well, all right, gun to my head, don't make the cute decision, act like the bases are loaded and just do it.
Did self-doubt ever creep in your career? Even though you've done something, there's a reason I'm asking this, even though you've done something for so long and you're so damn good at it, but something triggered an emotion or a feeling or some sort of thought cycle, some loop in your head where for the first time it's like self-doubt. Because I think that speaks to entrepreneurship too, right? As you start to
Hmm.
build something, as you start to scale something, all of a sudden it's like you might have this bad day and out of nowhere you get this twinge of like, am I really doing this the right way? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm very much an imposter syndrome kind of guy. Like I use that as fuel. Like any of the, like, again, I was not a prodigy. I'm not 6'8" that throws a million. Like, I kind of, I earned it. Right. And so for me, I'm living the dream going, man, I can't take it for granted. Like, I always thought I wasn't good enough. So, I'm very much a perfectionist, and
Which
I can't,
drove you though, right? Like
oh,
that might
100%.
make some people retreat, but for you, that drove you, the feeling that I'm not good enough.
Oh yeah, oh, 100%. And that's where I needed I still do. I need the results to just be egregiously good to feel good about it. I'm extremely hard on myself, and, like, probably to a fault a little bit where I don't soak things in as much as I probably should, but that's just me. I'm like, I sprint, man. I just keep going. I keep my head down, and then, every time I come up for air, I feel like it's not good. I just kind of like keep going and I just like doing cool things, man. Like, I try to keep it simple. Of like, like I said, pitching wise, it was about getting 3 outs. Now, bourbon wise, it's just about doing cool stuff, man. If you make cool stuff and you tell cool stories, people are going to buy it.
Coaching Effect Summit is not just any leadership conference. It is an annual event where high-performing leaders come to grow through research, relationships, and real coaching work. It's all happening June 11th and 12th at the beautiful Union Station in Kansas City, and it's packed with dynamic keynotes, interactive sessions, and one-of-a-kind networking opportunities, including a night at the Royals-Yankees game. This year's theme, A New Track Forward, is powered by data. Now get this, from over 500,000 coaching interactions showing what high-impact leaders are doing to drive performance. Here's what you can expect. The latest coaching and leadership research, formal and informal learning opportunities, a supportive community, and networking, and absolutely just a ton of fun. Now, our keynote speakers are not to be missed. Aaron Deal, renowned author and podcast host and founder of Improve It. Mike Buddy, who is a former director of athletics at West Point, and he is now the athletic director at Texas Christian University. Conducting the workshops, Ted Simoninger, president and CEO of Ocean Palmer and author of the world famous book, The Worry Circle. Sarah Worth, president of Excel Institute. And yes, I will be joining, facilitating a workshop. It's going to be a ton of fun. You don't want to miss this. If you want to learn more and grab a special discount, send us an email at info@themolitorgroup.com. That is info@themolitorgroup.com. Or send a text with the word summit to 719-459-6940. 719-459-6940 and text the word summit. And the story is so amazing. So I want to get to, and I believe it was the last inning you pitched before you blew your arm out. Okay. Now, because you went through, you kind of, you had some tough breaks physically, right? Like some injuries and some things like that, some tough breaks. You fell into what happens so often in business and athletics, where it's a numbers game, being at the right place at the right time. Timing is everything sometimes. But here you come to what you might not know at the time is towards the end of your career, because you have Tommy John surgery coming up, unbeknownst to you. Talk about the last couple of guys that you got out with the bases loaded.
So yeah, that's the thing. I'm so tunnel vision. I don't even know who I faced. I think it
Well,
was in Pittsburgh. I think,
what
right?
I'm talking about tonight with Pujols and Trout.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Oh, and with
Talk
against
about
the Angels in Seattle.
Yes, talk
Yeah.
about that inning. That when you told me that story before, I was like,
Yeah.
and forgive me, for some reason I thought that was your last outing before the
Oh
injury.
yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but no, that was a good one because I remember I came into that game bases loaded, and yeah, I'm facing Trout, and I was, even when I threw hard, I always pitch backwards. And so, on top of Mike Trout being one of the best baseball players ever, he's just an anomaly as a right-handed hitter. He has kind of a left-handed hitter's swing. And so I'm not throwing as hard at the time. I'm like 93, 94 maybe. And so, catcher Chris Iannetta is like, all right, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, obviously first pitch sliders, whatever. And he's like, nope, you're going to throw fastballs. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, just above the belt, right over the plate. I'm like, okay. And I'm
You
like,
want to
dude,
put the
this
T
is,
out there for him? Because we can do that. If you just want to put
yeah.
the
And
T
I'm
out there.
like, all right, I know that, like, I got to keep it flat though, because that's the thing. If with him, you got to keep it flat. And so I got him to 2 strikes, and then I finally got my slider and got him. And then, that's tough because you're like, man, okay, that's good. And then you got Albert Pujols walking up. So, who I had faced,
Yeah.
numerous times, and it wasn't anything new for him. So luckily got him to fly out. And that was just, again, that's the stuff, because I always love that too, because those weren't my runners. And there's no better feeling when, somebody comes in and bails you out like that. That's always the fun job.
So 2017, you have surgery. You're coming up on the trip to San Francisco in 2018. When you decided to do the bourbon thing, did the bourbon thing maybe pull you out of baseball sooner? I know Tyler wanted you to make one more run at it, right?
Yeah,
So
he
were
was
you
always, yeah.
kind of so locked into the thought process of what the next step was in your life, and getting excited about it?
Yeah, it was just more of making sure I had an answer because, as I told you before, I can't really sit still. So I knew I needed to take, that whatever effort I was putting into baseball and find something. So I searched for that answer, and obviously it just kind of came organically through the idea in 2018. And, towards 2020, I was in big league camp with the Phillies, and I pitched well. And then COVID shut the world down. And so then I was kind of just by myself throwing in my garage, and I had 2 kids playing on a third. And I was kind of going through the motions, honestly. Like, and then when they called, the rosters unfroze and the Phillies called and released me, and it was kind of a relief, really, because I was like, I don't know, like, because people would ask me like, hey, how's the arm? How's baseball? Oh, it's fine. But hey, I just figured this out about the whiskey. If we did this, and then like I just found myself like kind of pushing towards that. And I also knew, it wasn't so much that, I needed to keep playing as much as like I needed to do the whiskey thing before the first MLB game happened on the movie site. Because I knew once that happened, it was probably going to change some things. So I figured that was kind of a fork in the road. And look, I mean, I'm a big believer that the reason I was able to move through the minor leagues is because I obsessed about it, right? That's all I, if I put my mind to it and I care more than somebody else, I kind of trust that I'm gonna be able to pull it off, especially it's it's in one of my strengths. So that's kind of where, to me, I go, I think I could do that, take that same maverick mentality to this whiskey idea. And, that got me more fired up. So that it kind of made it pretty easy for me to switch over.
Really cool when you're so locked into something because you believe in it so much and you feel it so much. And all of a sudden you, for whatever reason, as you said, you come up for air, you're like, how in the hell did we pull that off? Like, how did we grow through that time of just like not really having any clues of what we were doing or where we were going, and we still came out the other side of it okay?
Yeah, I still don't know. I mean, this whole thing has been extremely surreal. I mean, I remember when we went up for the first bottling, me, Andy, and Tyler were just like, wow, we actually did it. I mean, it was like 2 years of work, right? And you're like, huh, we actually pulled this off. It's just such a, obviously the real world is just all delayed gratification. Whereas, baseball was like,
Oh,
that's
I know.
that's playing that's playing roulette every day, baby. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
especially with your position too, right?
right. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And so like kind of baking in that patience and like, delayed gratification. It makes it really sweet when it works, but you have to really respect the process a whole heck of a lot more. But I'll still have people, I mean, especially now, people are like, "Oh, cool," and they're like, "Oh, wait." I'll even have bourbon people that just recognize me because of bourbon versus baseball, which is really, that's to me is really cool. I'd rather have somebody know
Right,
me
right. Like now
because
you
of the
know you're
bourbon.
fine. Yes.
Yeah, our first bottle signing was in my hometown, and we had 150 people online an hour before, and like that's when I had the wow. So then I just assumed it was all the people I knew, and then when it wasn't people I knew, I'm like, this is kind of crazy. And I was like, this is definitely more people lining up for a bourbon autograph than a baseball autograph. Like if they were doing my cards, there'd be like three people there. So I was like, this is a good thing.
Look,
Like,
I wasn't bad. What fine.
yeah, hey, that's fine.
Hey, process. You mentioned a process. What was that process for 2 years? Like, how did you come up with the recipe, so to speak? Like, how'd you get
Yes.
the bourbon itself, and then the whole labeling process, and talking to the creativity piece, and how you connected that to the story of all three of you, right? Like, not
Yeah.
just yourself, but all three of you, because it's really a phenomenal story.
Thanks. I mean, I just kind of broke it down by, hey, I had to learn corn. So luckily I grew up in a town that had cornfields. So I called one of the big farmers in town. I was like, can you teach me about corn? And like, I assumed that we were going to have to pay the farmer out at the movie site to plant different corn because, hey, whatever. But then once I learned about corn, I realized they were already growing it.
Oh, you
So
thought there was a bourbon corn.
yeah, I'm like, I figured it's not like, I didn't know if it was like, ew, whatever, and then I'm like, man, this is great. This is super easy. And so then I just got on LinkedIn and just figured out who owned the movie site at the time and sent a couple emails out, and they connected me with Andy Ray, who's one of the brothers and that takes care of the field. And I asked him what he did with the corn, and he said, I take it in town and sell this feed corn. So I said, well, I got an idea for you. And so I mean, he's great. He's a couple years older than me. He become one of my really good friends, and yeah, it's been cool. And as I mentioned before, my best friend from the big leagues, Tyler Clippard, he was immediate like, hey, look, if you can figure this whiskey thing out, like I'll invest in it, so you don't have to take all the risk. And like for me, that was a great pat on the butt, right? So I could go, all right, let's see if we can do it. And he was still playing, so it was about every couple of weeks I'm calling him like, hey, how in are you? Hey, how in are you? Because like at first I was like, look, man, we'll do 9 barrels of this if anything, and then like we're not risking anything, and we can treat it like a distillery trip. And by the end of this year we'll have 5,000 plus down. So clearly he's been yeah. And then as we kind of grew, I had one of my other teammates, Sherry Blevins, reach out and say, hey, like, can I get involved? And so absolutely. So for us, I mean, it's the perfect storm because we get to hang out. We'll travel, do events together, so we get to be around each other, but then we have our team meetings, and so we just talk and hang out like we're just in the bullpen. So it's been really, really nice to have that kind of a, something I didn't really plan on, but it's worked out great.
Well, it has to really purpose of what you're doing too, right? It has to connect to
Hmm.
that whole thing. But talk about some of the creative thing. You guys are really doing some cool stuff. It's almost like
Thanks.
a bottle of bourbon that's a baseball card, if you will. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really
So
freaking powerful.
I got pun intended. We're trying to create a five-tool bourbon, but because you have everybody's
Uh,
trying to sell a story in a bottle.
Right.
But for us, I want to have an insane amount of depth. So I want nods to baseball and also nods to my own whiskey collection. So our first release we did is called our player series. So it's one bottle for every player in Major League history. That was always one of my favorite trivia questions, of like how many people have ever played Major League Baseball. And this year it's up to 23,370. And so within that, we hand number all of them. So that's kind of like some of my rare Willet bottles are hand labeled. And then we built a website so you can actually look up your number, reverse search it, and see who the player is associated with it. So if you have bottle 3083, you got Shoeless Joe Jackson. Yeah, so that was cool. And
that's really cool.
Thank you. It is a little difficult to scale a company by adding 250 bottles a year. So we came up with another SKU, and that's our small batch. So that's an everyday SKU. We did that one at 99 proof, and that's really just because my buddy Andy kind of always gave me flack because I only had 99 career saves and I never got to 100. So just kind of a funny little insider there.
Like that.
Yeah. But with that one, we licensed 24 and counting retired legends. We say Hall of Famers or Hall of Fame stories, and we hide them under the capsule. So you have to open the capsule to see who you get. So we kind of say it's a pack of tops that get you drunk.
How hard? Forget the bubble gum, right? How hard was that? How hard was that to do though, to make those?
But really not bad. It's really just getting in touch with guys and figuring out like, hey, luckily we have the Players Alumni Association. So reach out through them, and, for us to kind of just put a little extra cash in somebody's pocket, it's a cool thing too.
You have one of those to show us, because this will be on our YouTube channel. Will be on social.
So here's the small batch, and then so then the cap comes off. So this one is Chipper.
Love it. Look at him.
Yeah. Here's the player series. So I picked
Do you send a bottle to each one of those guys? I mean, or do they?
The guys are on the. Yeah. I mean, if they want them, yes. Like some of the guys, like we'll send cases out as just the trade. So then that way they can give it out as gifts and everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really
yeah. One thing I wanted to, on this one. So the reason I picked the shape of this bottle is the medal of the Cy Young Award. So it kind of looks like the same shape.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of a lot.
Did that pop in your head right away, or is that something that just sort of came to you as your mind mapping, or how did that work out?
Oh, I was designing a bottle, and I was trying to find a shape that wasn't like a blatant baseball bat. Like I don't want it to just be like a hoax fest of what we're doing, So I wanted something that was like kind of a subtle nod. And again, if it's only me that notices, then that's fine. Like that's just kind of the way I am, where it's like, if I can piece together all these little things, people might not understand it, but it looks cool. And they understand, and it gives me, I like having a good answer for anything that's on the bottle.
What was some of the feedback you got from the guys that you played with and guys in the league that saw it for the first time, and when they tasted it for the first time?
Wow, it's actually good. That's kind of the best backhand compliment I think we keep getting, is that like people like saw the packaging, saw the, know the story. So I kind of expected the juice to kind of fall, because it's easy to say that this is a gimmick, right? And for me, I obviously take a lot of pride in respecting the whiskey side of it. So when people are like, no, it's actually good, that's the best thing we can get. And, guys are just, the guys that know me aren't really shocked that I did this, but guys that don't are like, dude, how, just like, what? Just kind of confused.
That speaks to you though, right? That speaks to your character in terms of how much the game of baseball meant to you, right? And the Field of Dreams wasn't just a movie. It wasn't just a cornfield. It wasn't, the game. And I think that movie, millions of people do, it tells such a story about what the baseball meant to so many of us. And for you to be able to, if you're going to put your name on it and put the juice in the bottle, there's no doubt that's going to be, second to none. Now, is it something that you keep tweaking and keep improving?
Yeah, so we're with our player series, we are actually changing the proof and the blend of it like every year. So the proof this year is 108 proof. So 108 stitches on a baseball. And also the alcohol content is how many homers Ohtani had last year. So there's a little double there. I like mixing it up, because especially on the player series, we're a small batch, that's going to stay pretty consistent. But we're going to add in. We got a pretty cool new SKU that we're coming out with this year. We're calling it All Star, where we're taking a barrel of our own stuff and we are blending it with one barrel from every major league market. So we found the best distillery in each major league market and got a barrel from them, and we're just blending it all together. And yeah, kind of like an old All Star. The front label will be like an old All Star photo and everything. It should be pretty
I
cool.
mean, it's amazing when you think about it. You're not running out of ideas. Like it seems like a pretty simple thing. Like it's bourbon, right? And there's some
Mhm.
cool stuff you can do with it, but it's still but just that alone, that and you said something earlier about the rules of the game, right? Like you don't really understand the rules of the game. That's something we actually talk a lot about with our clients is the ability to understand the constraints that you're working inside of, right?
Mhm.
And then to challenge that status quo a little bit. How have you been able to do that? Not a little bit, a lot of it, right? But how have you been able to do that in an industry totally foreign to you from a business perspective? Like obviously you
Yeah.
understood bourbon, you had a passion for it, but how have you been able to challenge the status quo, so to speak, and do things like you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said Moneyball kind of pushed me out of baseball, so I want to be the Moneyball of bourbon. So I kind of came up with like I looked at it from a different approach. I kind of looked at it more like a barrel fund. Like you have all these investment funds, you can just invest in whiskey as a commodity. So I knew that we had kind of a safety net, and contract distilling's pretty easily accessible now. And so I was like, well, I don't want to have to pay for equipment. I don't know how to distill. So let's leave that to the people. You don't want me distilling your juice. Like that's when we'd fall in the bad category. I wanted to leave it to the pros where it's like, hey, we'll deliver you the corn, you do your thing, and then I'll do my thing with the packaging, the story, and make sure that it's all in line. I know enough to know what I like taste wise, so I can say, hey, this mash bill, here's what I'm looking for. But I just try to keep it simple and kind of stay in my lane. And, I think that's been something I take a lot of pride in because, I didn't, like I said, I'm trying to limit the risk as much as possible. So I tried to come up with something that I think has been pretty successful so far.
How did you navigate the delayed gratification piece coming from the background that you were in, right? Like every single day, you're going to know whether you won, you lost, you succeeded, or you failed, or you learned, however you want to phrase it. Like, how did you get used to the long game, so to speak?
I don't know that I have.
I was just gonna, I swear, I was just gonna, or
Yeah.
have you, or haven't you? Yeah.
Baseball wise, I was just trying to pick one little thing each day and work on it, right? Like whether it was just playing catch of like, I'm going to work on a changeup today instead of going like, I want to work on cutter, change, all these things. I just wanted to move the needle a little bit each day. And so that's where, you got to take kind of those grindy wins, like if it's as simple as me, like firing a couple of emails off to get distribution movement or whatever it is, or just to order some stuff for an event we have. Like it's all these like tiny victories that will pay off when, we do this event or whatnot. But yeah, it's for me, it's tough. Anytime I can do design stuff, that's when I feel good because I can just get in that wormhole and come up with something that is like, oh, okay, this is neat. Those are the easiest wins for me.
Now, I have to ask you this. When is the Vin Scully microphone bottle coming out? Can you tell that story? That's one of the
Yeah.
coolest stories that you thought. I mean, you had the mind to do that. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So I along with millions of people adored Vin Scully, and for me, my first major league save was called by him. So just I couldn't really script that much better. I had Pudge catching, and then Vin calling it in Dodger
Insane.
Stadium, like
Yeah.
wild. So I wanted to, have something to commemorate that. So I just Googled, found an old picture of Vin. I think it was from 1957, and saw the old school microphone in there, and so then got on eBay and found it and bought one, and then took it out there and took it up to the booth, and he signed it. So it says, "To Drew, a pleasure to talk about you, Vin Scully," and it's just you know it was the coolest thing ever because he's a saint. He treated me like Babe Ruth, and I'm like, Ben, I'm a nobody, dude. This is
That's the way the greats usually do it, right?
yeah. I always did enjoy hearing the guys talk about when he would come into Sunday Mass and read the Bible because everybody just goes, "Well, that's God talking." So,
Right? That's true. I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
unbelievable. Where's that mic at today?
So, in our new house, I kind of built like a little memorabilia room because I tried to collect. some rare, not just obvious stuff that everybody would have. So I have that. I got another cool thing. I got Pat Venditti's glove, switch pitcher, and so and then let's see what else. I have a challenge flag from the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just kind
That's
of like,
now, nah, where'd
yeah,
you get
yeah.
that?
Oh, I don't want to sell anybody out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But essentially, I had like we do like I set up like four lockers, so it's so each four teams I played in big leagues on, it has my jersey and everything, so it kind of looks like and my cleats I used with that team, so you can kind of see all in one.
Do you have the Bat Boy helmet that you wore when you batted?
I should
You
have.
got what?
I
How?
should.
Why did you wear a bat? You told me a story. I forgot it already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my I was 2 weeks in the big leagues, and I was middle relief, so I was getting an AB, and I'm a switch hitter. So even on my baseball card, it said S/R, which I always just got a kick out of. But like my growing up, my dad ruined his right arm throwing me so much batting practice because I was a switch hitter, and like I was going to be a switch hitting shortstop, and then I became a better pitcher. So when I go up to bat, they wanted me to hit right-handed because they wanted me to protect my right elbow. And I said, no, I don't want to hit right handed. Like, hey, I can't let my dad down because they just wanted me to go up there and stand. I'm like, that's not happening because I hit my freshman year of college. So, like, I'm not just a,
Look,
giveaway.
yeah.
And so they're like, no, here you go. And they gave me the one flap on the right side. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And they're like, hey, Bat Boy, give me your helmet. And they'll double flap. So I took the double flap up there against Kevin Millwood, took the first pitch, took a kind of a backyard wiffle ball hack on the second, and then completely changed my stance and kind of knocked off like a Jim Edmonds stance, and then kind of filleted one to left field for a hit. And you could see like the eye roll from the manager. I Jim was not. He's like,
You
oh,
worked way too hard for that at bat. Yeah.
yeah. He's like, and I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. It took a long lead off that alpha first, and
Oh, it was great. Well, it was great too because I did like the reach back to first just out of like old habit. Like I'm Willie Mays Hayes out there. It was ridiculous.
oh man, that was so cool. And somehow all those stories you just keep pouring into, and no pun intended, into what you're doing now. How well
Yeah,
played that was without even trying.
I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how the greats do it.
Oh,
No, I mean it was. You know what's amazing? We were talking about spring training, so I
yeah.
obviously took some bottles down there, and so after the first game, Davey Martinez opened the small batch, and it was a Thurman Munson cap. And he goes, that was my guy. And I'm like, really? He's like, oh yeah. He goes, I'll never forget the day he died, the coach pulled me aside and told me, and I bawled for hours. And like, but it was just like, what are the chances it's that? And then
Exactly.
also like, I mean, it just, so we, sat around and talked, baseball. Like it was the first time I really had a chance to do that in a clubhouse, but it's perfect because it's a conversation starter one way or another. That was pretty special.
I mean, honestly, that story gave me goosebumps. You think about that. I mean, you're there with your family. Wally's in the clubhouse.
That's right. It's wild, man.
Then you have that story. Well, where can folks find out? We're going to put everything on our show notes. Okay.
Hmm.
We'll put all the social links, website, we'll put everything there. But go ahead for the listener now. Where
Yep.
can they find out more about Field of Dreams, bourbon? Where can they make a purchase? How does that all work?
Yep. Our website is just drinkfieldofdreams.com, and then we're at drinkfieldofdreams on socials. We ship to 35 states off our website, but we also have pretty much distribution throughout the Midwest. So we're in 10 states right now, but the easiest way to just hit our website.
If you don't send to a certain state, like I like to send bourbon to podcast guests, to clients,
Mhm.
and things of that nature. If you don't ship to a state, what can they do? Get it to themselves and then figure it out, or
Hopefully, we'll be in your state traditionally, but a lot of states that don't let you ship there are really, I mean, they're kind of in the South and they're not really bourbon states. So, yeah. But if you go to our website, if anything, like just drop a message in there, and we can help you track one down one way or another.
Drew, I can't thank you enough for being here, man.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
It was a blast. I look forward to today, our paths cross in person.
Hmm.
Pick your brain, hear a lot more stories. But I really appreciate you.
No, thank you so much, Ed.